Well, let's hope the rest of the show goes better because this has been crazy. All right, but before like my computer explodes or something, let's bring on our guest who's been waiting. I had the pleasure of seeing Nick Tammaro in person for the second time in my life at the Belmont Stakes. It was great to see him. I had a nice conversation with him, Marshall Graham, and Andy Sterling. How about that, Pete? In the same box, Marshall Graham, Nick Tammaro, and Andy Sterling, and then some schmuck like me had a great conversation.
We definitely know who the worst handicapper is of that bunch, obviously.
Oh, no question, it's Sterling, but that's okay. Just kidding, Andy. By the way, Andy had a great day today. If you were watching, he was on the first half of the show. On America's Day of the Races, had a 5-1 and an 8-1. Paul, let's bring you back in here. Paul, go ahead and talk for a second.
Any better?
Oh, yes. There you go. You're back.
You were like Darth Vader. Like it was very weird. Okay, you're all good. All right, let's bring in our guest. You can find him on In the Money Media. He hosts the Players Podcast sometimes. He's got great information on his blog. He gives picks daily for NYRA. He'll have picks on Saratoga. What hasn't he done? He's done morning lines. He's a racetrack announcer at Sam Houston. Friend of the show, friend of mine. Happy to have him on once again. The one and only Nick Tammaro. Nick, how you doing? Save us, Nick. Save us.
I'm doing great, Howard. I like your start. I wouldn't call it auspicious, but ready to get it rolling. I kid. No, you're fine. It's the beauty of a live show.
I'll tell you what, we honestly, that was the worst start of the show I've ever had in my entire life. But anyway, glad to have, I know you just made the show worthwhile. So glad to have you on. We were just talking a little about Saratoga. Today was like typical Saratoga, right, Nick? You got the weather, you got long shots, you got good maiden races, you got stake races. I mean, today was basically what Saratoga is all about.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Felt a little bit maybe like 2013 or 2014 with Javier Castellano winning 3 races. But anybody that's been paying attention to New York racing regularly since his last agent switch, and Javier has made a lot of agent switches over the years. He's actually ridden really well, and he was kind of an under the radar pick, I would say, to have a better meet than expected. I think he won about 11 or 12 races last year. I think he'll do much, much better than that. And so he had a really nice day. Looked like everything worked out well with the shoot in the Wilton, the first of the 2 stakes races. And we didn't have any issue with the courses at all. So it was great to have Saratoga back.
It was great until I thought maybe they're going to let that 4 get loose. I don't know why Tarabi was like 3 lengths off the lead. But anyway, that's a whole other question. Nick, on the show Tuesday night, we did it, and by the way, congratulations for all the coverage you guys have done on In the Money for Saratoga and other places. I think most people know, but I know I sort of cut my teeth last year through In the Money Media, and I want to thank, of course, PTF and JK and everyone for allowing me to write on the blog and be a part of many of the shows. And I haven't been contributing as much this year, but they have so many great talent there. They certainly don't need me at all. So anyway, thanks again to In the Money, who they do a great job there, of course. Nick, on the show Tuesday night, we talked about Saratoga at length, and we handicapped today's pick 5. I'm going to ask you 3 very quick questions that actually talked about on the show on Tuesday, and you can go any direction. You can take 15 seconds, you can take 2 minutes, whatever you'd like, and then we'll jump into the pick 5 for Saturday. The questions or topics will be at the bottom of the screen. First question or topic: jockeys or trainers that you're interested in betting under the radar, ones you're looking at more carefully at Saratoga this meet?
Well, I mean, look, after today, it looks easy to say Castellano, but he was probably he's the best rider that wasn't getting a lot of fanfare coming into the meet. So, he's one. I would say that Kendrick Harmouche got a win today. He had a really rough Belmont, and it'll be interesting to see if maybe he can kind of turn things around a bit, being in a colony that's now a little bit deeper. I would say, as far as trainers go, there are a lot of guys that have gotten off to fast starts at this meet the last couple of years, specifically, that both got wins today, Mike Maker and Christophe Clement. And, they're generally 20% trainers. Christophe's even better than that. So you would imagine that they'll be pretty well represented from start to finish. So, I don't know if I necessarily have one that I would say, hey, I think this guy might win a lot more races, or this gal might win a lot more races than expected. But, Cherie DeVoe training Tarabi, of course. Cherie's very underrated. and she's very, very good. So, of course, schooled under Chad Brown, and now on her own is doing extremely well. So I think we'll see some people grab a little bit of spotlight as time goes by, and it's just exciting to have so much talent, human and equine, together in one place.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, I talked on Tuesday about Dylan Davis, who had an unbelievable meet at Belmont. It's sort of a shame that he didn't win. And I'm just curious to see how a guy like that, who had such a successful meet at Belmont, if he can sort of replicate that at Saratoga, where the waters even get deeper. Second topic, and this came up today, coincidentally, in one of the races. And I think this topic is also going to be a factor on Saturday. And the question is to Chad or not to Chad, Nick? And we talked about this on many angles. I sort of took the angle, what do you do with a 2-year-old, 2-turn, first-time starter in a turf race where, a Chad horse is a bit cold on the board, 4-1, 8-1, where he wins with those horses too. But then a horse like, for example, Customer List today, who I was completely against, was just an awful favorite, at least in my opinion. And that wasn't redboarding for me, Nick, because I talked about this horse on Tuesday that I didn't like her, although she actually ran okay. She got a bad trip and it was a slow pace.
Horrible ride. A horrible ride.
Well, we not surprisingly, Nick, that was Paul's top choice, as you can tell. And I loved Kanisi. I have no idea how Kanisi got off at 7-2. Anyway, to Chad or not to Chad in general, Nick?
I will say I like Kanisi too, and I bet Kanisi, and I think we were a little lucky there, Howard. But better to be lucky than good, and I've been on the wrong end of plenty of those.
You had Kanisi on top, by the way, in the blog, I noticed, and the horse I loved, and these guys know this because I talked about Tuesday. Ran off the post parade. I thought Missy Greer was fascinating as a possible lone speed and win it 20-1. Of course, she runs off and whatever, blah blah blah. But congrats on Kanisi. To Chad or not to Chad?
Yeah, I would say you have to handle it situationally, right? I mean, there are going to be a lot of times where Chad is bet by default. And it felt a little bit like that was the case with Customer List. I know she was dropping in class out of the Penn Oaks, where she clearly faced better competition. But I think you want to be careful about just taking Chad because you're defaulting to Chad. He's got a horse on Saturday early in the card that is going to be an enormous favorite, dropping in class at 1 1/8 on the dirt. And, this is a situation where if you're playing the early pick 5, it kind of jams you up a little bit, because if you want to take a swing against this horse, you're really running a major risk. I think it's in the 4th race. I want to give you the horse's name is Higher Quality. It's coming out of a one other than on Belmont Day, and is just a standout on paper, numbers wise. So this is a horse who's going to be a huge favorite. The one thing I will say about Chad, and you alluded to it, there were a lot of 2-year-old turf routes last year where he was favored simply because of Chad. I mean, there was and the other thing is that Chad wins a lot of turf races with bad pedigree horses, no pedigree horses, because he's just that astute. But careful taking Chad in that scenario, right? Don't just take him because you figure, Chad will win because he's trained, multiple juvenile fillies turf winners and he's won these races numerous times. So that's one thing I'd be extra careful about. But understand, of course, he's going to drop a ton of horses in order to get wins. He covets this training title, and he's going to throw everything at the wall to try and get it.
And he also struggled. We talked about this Tuesday. He also struggled in the first part of the meets last year. Now, maybe that was just an aberration, but it took him a while to get going. But boy, once he got going last year, he was unbelievable.
Well, and he had a really bad run in 2020 too. I mean, he had a middle of the meet where I think he was 1 for 30, and it was all of a sudden dealing with COVID wasn't the worst thing that was going on for him. But it's tough. And look, Saratoga's a pressure cooker, and for somebody like him who's from upstate New York, who's obviously very popular around town, I'm sure there's a lot of weight on his shoulders. And if it was up to him, every race would shape up like the Diana, where he has 4 out of 6 and probably just has to worry about being the exacta.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, if you're just joining the show, I would suggest you not watch the first minute and a half. We had some technical issues. For those of you that were on right away, I greatly apologize. We had a bunch of technical issues. That's the beauty of live podcasting. But thanks for joining us. Everything is ready to rock and roll. Last question, and again, you can take this any angle you'd want, Nick, that we discussed on Tuesday that we'd love to get your opinion on. A favorite or worst type of race, either based on the condition or based on the distance, or a particular handicapping angle that you really enjoy betting at Saratoga?
Oof. You know, the miles are going to negate a little bit of it, but I really always enjoyed betting the mile and 16th cutbacks on the dirt from Belmont, going 6.5 and 7 at Saratoga, especially horses that want to be coming from a little bit off the pace. So I don't, there'll still be plenty of 6.5 and 7 furlong dirt races. Those are a lot of fun. I really don't enjoy the 2-year-old turf route from a betting perspective. I've just never, I think they're kind of annoying at times, and the workout reports generally aren't as influential, and they're just not that exciting to me. You also will have a lot of different trainers that can really emphasize those types of horses year to year more than others. I think it was 2017 or 18. All of a sudden, Bill Mott won like 3 or 4 races with first-time starting 2-year-olds going long on the turf. And it was like, how the hell did this happen, right? I mean, Bill Mott never won with those kind of horses. So, yeah, those are the ones that I generally hope that they're early on the card so that they're not, they don't get in my way too much.
Yeah, I think he was literally like 2 for 78, and then he went like 3 for 7 or something like ridiculous, number that was completely way off the radar. That was hard to figure. So, but he's a great trainer. He can win first time out. A lot of these guys can pop first time out because it is Saratoga, so it's tricky to tell. All right, guys, let's get into the pick 5 sequence here. As I go ahead and switch to the banners here. There's race 7 already up on the screen as the scroll. And I have great producers that you guys have on In the Money, Nick. So I got to take a second here just to press a few buttons here. Let's go ahead and bring up the Equibase entries. Nick, you're going to go ahead and be first as we talk about race 7. Again, we're going to be going through the late pick 5, everyone, on Saturday. It starts at 4:29 Eastern Standard Time. Again, with race 7, starts with an optional allowance 62.5. They're going 7 furlongs on the dirt. This is a field of some very nice horses, typical allowance race at Saratoga. And there is one horse that sticks out like a sore thumb. It's the number 5 Reinvestment Risk for Chad and Irad. And Nick, you're not messing around the first leg. That's who you're going with.
Yeah, I'm not going to fool around with this. I mean, this is a stakes caliber horse. He's obviously multiple grade 1 placed, and including this year as a 4-year-old. Obviously, he had some health issues in 2021 at the end of his 2-year-old season, but seems to be over those for the most part. He's just had the misfortune of running into very good horses in pretty much throughout his career. Jockeys Warrior has really, he's really dogged Reinvestment Risk throughout his career. But it's a good move by Chad to drop him in class and get him a little bit of confidence back, likely in search of a graded stake opportunity in the latter part of this meet. You would think he could potentially end up in the Forego if he runs one of his better races. So the good thing about him also is that he's versatile enough to stay close. There's really not a lot of speed in here. That's part of the reason why I picked River Dog second, but it just looks like Reinvestment Risk is probably a little too much horse for these.
Yeah, I think the only way, well, I guess there's a lot of ways to lose a race, but he's always seemed to be a horse, Nick, that prefers on the outside. If he gets buried down on the inside trying to close, that would not be in his best interest. I don't think. Irad's ridden him many times before. I mean, you can make the argument though, Nick, he's been a bit disappointing, but because he has been some lower prices and not get the job done, especially in his 2-year-old year. But I mean, he's lost to Jockeys Warrior, Essential Quality, Following C, and Speaker's Corner. I mean, and there's no one in this field even remotely close to any of those. So if he can't get the job done here, Nick,
right? He's that sort of bizarre, overrated horse that's only lost as a beaten favorite once, right? I mean, he's just had this horse has lost to a bunch of horses before they were even as good as they ended up getting. So I agree with your sentiment that he might be a little bit better outside. It's kind of funny. He actually broke his maiden coming up the rail, but I think as he's matured, and a lot of times it has to do with the way these horses are trained. They're trained generally with targets. And so I think he'll be a little bit better kind of stalking on the outside. And, maybe this gets him the confidence back that he needs to try one of these, try the deeper waters again later on.
Yeah, let's talk about River Dog. You're the only one in the panel here that has this horse second. You just mentioned this mainly a speed angle. On the early time form, he is loose, but I guess the question is, if you're an exacta kind of player, is he good enough to even hang on for second?
Yeah, I think so. And in fact, I think from a betting perspective, that's probably the best approach here is to kind of one punch the exacta. This horse got involved in a ridiculous pace last time out. I mean, they
Yeah.
flew early in the Mr. Prospector, and he was one of 6 horses on paper that had speed, and it played out that way. And drafted somehow paid $12 and change coming from last, but. I would like him a little bit better at 6 than 7. And I know that his win 2 starts back is not as good as it might look on paper. He's a little sluggish figure wise in comparison to a horse like Reinvestment Risk, unless you go back to some of his 2-year-old or early season 3-year-old races. But again, I think he'll end up sporting a pretty significant pace edge. And I would say I think he's capable of holding on for second.
Those of you that are watching live, if you have any questions for Nick, please, in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, type in any questions for Nick Tammaro in the live chat, whether they be regarding the specific handicapping that we're doing right now or just any questions in general. It's a great opportunity on the show to have one of the best, not only one of the best people in horse racing, but one of the best handicappers in horse racing on the show. So if you have any questions, no pressure, Nick, by the way, with your picks on the show. We're happy to have you. Please put those questions up. Let's go to Paul. Now, Paul, you have Baby Yoda in second. I have Baby Yoda in second. Nick has Baby Yoda in third. Does Baby Yoda have any chance to upset Reinvestment Risk? How do you feel about this horse in general, Paul?
Yeah, I don't think so. I kind of thinking like Nick did. You got to find someone to win a second. You always go into, you see a 3 to 5 morning line, and I think our instinct is, okay, how do we beat this horse? And the first thing I looked at was, well, he's 0 for 3 at 7 furlongs, talking about Reinvestment Risk. But ironically, and I don't know what you guys think, I think that's probably his best distance. Again, his losses at a Jockeys Warrior 3 times. I actually think 7 furlongs is the ideal distance. So, I think Baby Yoda will get a good trip on the outside with Rosario. Ran a decent enough in the True North in a good field led by Jockeys Warrior. So someone's got to finish second, and I came up with this gelding.
Paul, I want to ask you a question, and Nick, I'd like to go back to you with the same question. Baby Yoda, a B, a C, Reinvestment Risk, lone A, single, stone cold, Paul? How do you feel from an ABC perspective here?
I would have Reinvestment Risk as a lone A and probably Baby Yoda as a C. I'm not even sure I'd have Bs. Haven't finalized it yet, but that's how I'm leaning.
Nick, is Baby Yoda a C, or is this just River Dog's a C also, or is it one of those weird things where you like the exacta with River Dog, but you would never even put him in even as a C? Is that possible?
It is actually. That's kind of.
I mean, it's sort of weird, right? That way.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the misleading thing, as it would look in in an analysis format, is that I kind of would advise people to just bet the 5-7 exacta, but lone A the 5. The thing about Baby Yoda that you have to at least let enter into your mind is that, I mean, this might be the quintessential Saratoga horse for course, and Saratoga is a big horse for course spot. I mean, there was one day in which Baby Yoda could beat Olympiad, and it happened to be September 4th of 2021. I don't know if Baby Yoda could warm up Olympiad right now. So,
and by the way, I loved, and if people don't believe me, go back to the show I had. Go back to the archives. That show I had with Vic Stauffer was actually on with me, Nick, and I loved Olympiad at a price. And he ran a big race, by the way. I think Olympiad got like a 105 buyer or something that day. And of course, Baby Yoda had to do like a hidden scroll 114 nonsense out of nowhere.
Yeah, every smart person I know and needed Olympiad that day. And I bet Olympiad and they turned for home. And I was like, oh, this is great. I was looking for other horses to come and fill in the exacta and then realized about the 8th pole. Holy cow, this horse is not stopping. So, he's just never, that is one of those races that will forever live in isolation. It will just never, it will never really be, you can never even really understand it. Right. It's just one of those races. He didn't have really much of a chance last time out. Even if he did get out of the gate cleanly, he didn't have the cleanest of trips, but he kind of gave up third late to War Toxin. It just looks like he's kind of a bum, and I wouldn't use him in a multi-race play. I would just ride or die with Reinvestment Risk. But the angle there would of course be the Saratoga horse for course.
Yeah, he's going to be a C for me, just in case. I mean, the post is great too, but he hasn't run back to anything remotely close to any of that, and even a low 90s isn't nearly as good. Let's end this conversation, Pete, with you because you have some horses that none of us have, which is great. You're thinking out of the box. You're going Nova Rags in second. I looked at this horse really carefully, and I'm still waiting for this horse, Pete, to run a bigger number. He just hasn't progressed. Maybe second off the layoff as a newly turned 4-year-old, maybe. You're going to get a price for sure underneath.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Also, by the way, Nick, I guess I'm one of the dummies because I actually had Baby Yoda that day, and I don't even remember why. It's probably just pure insanity. But that was the one day I was like, hey, actually, probably it was just a name, and I was probably in the middle of Mandalorian at that time. But whatever the reason is, I'll take a win when I can get it. But yeah, it's funny. When I was handicapping this, there was obviously no odds at that point, and I got to Nova Rag second. I was just going in post position order. And I'm like, oh, I love this horse, and I think he's going to be a price. And then I started seeing the horses after him, and I was like, oh, shoot, I don't like him as much as I thought I did after I started looking at reinvestment risk and a couple of the others. But I was like, I'm with you, Howard, what you said. I mean, this one was running in pretty good class last year. I think the stretch outs were maybe just a little bit too much for him to meet his maximum potential. And then at 7 furlongs, yeah, he never popped a good buyer, but in the Pasco, he ran a nice race. And the Woody Stevens, I mean, that drain the clock, Jackie's Warrior was a great race. Those two just sort of blew them away, and he just sort of ran behind them into that pace. But my thought was that last one, if you watched it, he just looked a little short. So it was like, maybe he's a little short. He comes back with the 83 if he could jump it up. Now, again, I hadn't seen that reinvestment risk was in the race yet, so I didn't know what the buyers that he would have to jump to would be. Now I know it's potentially going to be a lot higher than maybe the jump he could take. But I was thinking,
really, what? I don't want to dwell on this race. I'd like to move on. But, if Baby Yoda is Baby Yoda, which means inconsistent and not that good, I mean, what Nova Rag's got to improve, 3 or 4 lengths, 3 lengths maybe to get to the low 90s, and there's your second place finish. So I think it's a creative, Pete. I like this pick for you for a second. Nick, we got a quick question in the comments from Jim Pilar, is a good friend of the show, and then I'm going to go ahead and go on the next race. Here's the question at the bottom of the screen, and sorry, I know your head's in the way, but Jim just wants to know, you prefer vertically, horizontally, and do you have a specific bet you like the most?
That J is definitely a big improvement over anybody seeing my face. I can admit that. No, I mix it up pretty well. I should say I mix it up. I mix it up to my preferences. Maybe not always all that well, but the horizontal plays are, I think a lot of times they're better when you sort of find a sequence that fits your style. Does it have a single? Does it have a horse that you want to lean on? Does it have is it a situation where you might have a good play in the front end of a double and you want to really play that double pretty hard? I bet some doubles today from Canisi. I bet one big double into the Dwayne Lucas horse on the outside. Obviously didn't win, but so there are situations where you do things a little differently depending on the race itself. I mean, it's so difficult at Saratoga not to get involved in the multi-race bets. I mean, they're just so, there's so much value and so much opportunity there. But I mean, I make
both pick fives were over $1 million in the pool. It's just unbelievable. And by the way, that's not just because of opening day. You're going to see it. You'll see it probably tomorrow too, or close to it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, there was, I think, 2.3 million bet into the 2 pick fives combined. Pretty incredible. So, it's tough to not get involved in those pools. But, the other thing to consider is that the win pool is often offers a lot of value at Saratoga, not only because of the competitive nature of the racing, but also because the CAW players are not really in the win pool. So there's a lot to try and get in on there that can really be lucrative as well.
Jim, thanks for the question. We appreciate it. Let's go on to the Chad Brown Invitational, as Paul has called some previous races before. This is the Diana. It's a grade 1. It's always actually one of my favorite races of the entire year. This particular race is going to start about 5:03. It's a 6-horse field. It's pretty much been well documented if you follow horse racing. Our picks are on the bottom of the screen. It's a 6-horse field, like I said. You've got 4 of them are Chad, and I believe 3 of them are Peter Brandt, or 2. I can't recall. Sorry, off the top of my head.
Yes, 3.
3 are Peter Brandt. I still think it's an interesting race from a betting perspective. I really do. Nick, of course, as our guest, you're going to go again first. You got the Moorline favorite is Bleecker Street, which is, I think, Paul, I was shocked, by the way, with your pick. I thought you were the president of the Bleecker Street fan club, and you're going against her. But Nick is going to Bleecker Street. Chad, one of the Chads, I ran. Nick, this horse is undefeated, and last time in the New York was just absolutely awesome.
Yeah, she was terrific last time, and she kind of goes from being the hunter to the hunted, given that she was the second choice behind Rougir last time out at 5-2, and now she's going to be a pretty sizable favorite. She's a horse that just seems to be able to do it no matter what. She's been in mid-pack in super fast-paced races. She's been in last in really slow-paced races. So she's just impervious to setup and goes to show you what tremendous quality she has. I will tell you that in this particular race, which we're watching now, the New York, I thought there was a very brief period of time where it looked as if neither of them were going to win. Chad had four horses in this race. Three of them were entered really as competitive participants, the one exception being Flighty Lady. Flighty Lady ran the second best race, which is kind of funny. When I ran Angled Bleecker Street out, she just started flying. And she just ran by all of these horses who essentially ran in place the whole way because the pace really just held together almost completely. So it was a huge effort from Bleecker Street. The 1 1/8 on the Melon is pretty much, she's ideally suited for it. We haven't really figured out what she's not ideally suited for, which is really what's amazing about her. She has an Italian in there to set her up. I've got respect for technical analysis. I think she's a nice horse, but I just don't see how she overcomes this situation with an Italian in there as well. I think Bleecker Street gets it done again.
This is for any of you on the panel, and try not looking at any information. What was Bleecker Street's final quarter time of that race? I want to take a guess. What she finished that last race in? Final quarter? You want to take a guess without looking?
23-1.
Anyone else want to take a guess? How about 21-4?
Oh my God!
That according again, I can show you guys the chart, but I mean that's just unbelievable. By the way, the horse that was the 2 horse there was Rougir, who's also in this race. Nick, I gotta from a tactical standpoint now. This is interesting because technical analysis. Let me go ahead and bring the PPs full. Technical analysis forces a Chad on the rail with speed. But you've also got, of course, an Italian who pretty much is one-way speed. I guess could stalk a little bit, but that's also a Chad. And then you have Delica, who I would consider really more of a stalking type, even though you see a lot of ones. But I'm not sure she's as fast as the other two. What do you see happening from a pace scenario here, Nick?
Yeah, I don't think anybody should feel bad for Chad by any means, but it's difficult when you're running a horse for – you're running horses for your 2 main clients, right? And one of your big clients is Seth Klarman, Klarovich Stable, and technical analysis' best chance is to try and wire this field. And in Italian is in there specifically so that nobody wires the field. And so it's it's hard, right? I think that luckily Seth Klarman has had a ton of success with Chad, so he kind of understands what the game all entails. And that being said, I mean, I think technical analysis is perfectly comfortable rating a little bit off the pace. I just think it's one of those scenarios where she's likely a little bit better on the lead, but I think she'll let an Italian go and take up that spot chasing and try and get the jump on some of the deeper closers. I don't think she's any worse than the second likeliest winner in the field, in my opinion. And that's because I just don't know what happened to Rougir last time out. And I watched the replay multiple times trying to find an excuse.
We're going to talk about that right now. The only thing about technical analysis I'll say, and then we're going to move on from technical analysis. For some reason, Nick, I never believed Pimlico turf numbers. That turf can be a little bit quirky, a little bit weird, and that she ran very well in the Gallery, like very well. But I don't know, she's going to have to prove it to me again in this field to run that well. But she's a nice horse, and she's got the inside, so that's always, and with Jose, so that she's dangerous. But I don't know, she's one of those I need to see it again kind of feel for me. Pete, let's go to you. Paul, let's go to you. So, Paul, you got to help me out here because I thought you're a huge Bleecker Street guy. I was against
I was the Bleecker Street guy, Howard.
I'm sorry. Okay, Pete. I was against Bleecker Street last time because I've been with her before, as you guys know, but I didn't like her as much last time. You're going to Rougir this time, as am I, Paul. maybe we can explain to Nick and everyone else what happened last time. I have a theory. Do you have a theory, Paul, or what's your feeling here with Rougier?
No, my only theory is that I'm stubborn, and I'm hoping that last time was a throwout.
That's a good reason too.
Yeah, Howard, I wouldn't spend a lot of time trying to justify that last race. He did not run a step. She did not run a step. Pardon me. She did not run a step, and you know, to Nick's point, the pace did hold together, except that didn't seem to bother Bleecker Street. So I don't know. I'm hoping that the race was too bad to be true. I thought the race before, we talked extensively about the race before the Bogey going into that New York handicap. I thought that was she showed spectacular turn of foot there. And again, I'm just kind of hope. I think we bet this horse was 3-5 last time and might be 5-2, 3-1 this time. You can't bet them all. This is a good example of your question, Howard, to Chad or not to Chad. If you're playing a caveman ticket and you use all 4 of them, that's really not good ticket structure. You're going to have to make some decisions here. So, although I'll tell you, the technical analysis I almost picked. I think technical analysis has a more than a puncher's chance here. If to win it the way Nick described. Without an Italian, I'd be looking for her to win it on the front end. But especially from the one, and Nick, we might be back to another horse for course, as we talked about with Baby Yoda. Technical analysis is 2 for 2 at Saratoga.
Sorry about that, by the way, Nick. Nick, what we got for dinner tonight, young man?
No, I'm traveling. So my wife just walked in with pizza. So had to take a little bit.
Goodness. I'm sorry. It sounds good.
Yeah, I promise I'll wait till we're done.
Nick, I think you're like me, and correct me if I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. I'm not a big believer of a bounce factor. I don't think you're really a bounce guy either. Is it possible that Rougier bounced? And if that's not the case, is it possible? Because I looked at the workouts after she won very well, and it was sort of a slow pace, but she, in the Bogey, but she did explode. If you look at the workouts after May 14th, I mean, Chad doesn't really work fast, but they were 2 very slow, conservative works. Is it possible that Chad thought that Rougier might have been a little bit bouncy or over the top and really didn't crank her up as much, and she was short for the New York? Is that a possibility, or do you think that's a crazy logic?
I think it's possible she ran back a little quickly, and she was off a long layoff. Essentially, she was off of a foreign ship in the sense that she did make that last start of 2021 in America, and then was sold afterwards. Peter Brandt and Michael Tabor incidentally paid a tremendous amount of money for this horse, and Peter Brandt is trying to build a broodmare band to create, a really hopefully success for him for years to come. I think, my anti-Rougier stance in New York had to do with the fact that the Bogey was a very weak race from top to bottom. Yeah. There really was no depth in there at all. Our Flash Drive and High Opinion those are listed stake horses at best. Now, the argument, obviously the counter argument to that was that Rougier ripped their faces off, right? I mean, she won for fun. And so, it's very similar to her stablemate Speak of the Devil, who also was trained last year by Cedric Rossi, who incidentally did get suspended for using performance enhancing drugs. So, it's something that does at least deserve to be mentioned in the whole scenario and in the grand scheme of things. But Speak of the Devil had the same thing happen coming off of the Distaff Turf Mile at Churchill. She showed up in the Just a Game and was a total no-show. So, this is the most interesting horse running on the card on Saturday by far, because if we get the Rougier that we saw numerous times last year in France, and saw a little bit of in the Bogey, then she's going to be a force to be reckoned with moving forward, and maybe that gap between she and Bleecker Street will just evaporate.
Yeah, I'm going with Rougier. It looks like Chad started to tighten the strings, and the last thing I'll say about Rougier, Nick, well, 2 things. You're going to get an okay price considering the field, number 1. And number 2, I've talked about her effort in the Breeders' Cup because I had Love's Only You, which was a nice score for me. She actually ran deceptively well in that race. So I think she's got the class. I don't know what happened last time, but I think Saturday's going to be fascinating to see what happens. Pete, I know you're still there. The 3 horses we've already talked about. I don't know what else you'd like to add. Pete, we'll go with you first the next race, but How do you feel about the Diane in general? Obviously, Pete, you've got Bleecker Street on top also.
No, I mean, I think it's a fun race. And I think the one thing you have to like, if you like Bleecker Street and maybe to an extent Rougier as well, is that normally they don't have pace to run into. And here, because we have technical analysis and in Italian, maybe they will have some pace. It almost sets up even easier for Bleecker Street and Rougier than maybe some of their past races did. So I sort of just like them too. Same thing. I mean, I think in Italian's a great horse, and technical analysis are great horses for what they are, but not necessarily to beat these two.
Guys, I want to talk about Creative Flair for 30 seconds. I have the source in second. Charles Appleby, no joke. He was amazing last year with Althea and a bunch of horses he brought. I'm not going to show the replay because we talked a little bit too long for this race, but Creative Flair showed a lot of tactical speed in her win in Maidan, and her 2 starts and last year were okay here in the States, but she was a little more one pace than a closer. I think Jamie Spencer is going to show more speed with Creative Flair. I think Creative Flair is better than she was last year. Do not discount this horse. I think she's fascinating. I think Charles Appleby's coming here with a purpose. And I don't think Bleecker Street or Rougier are like, Sister Charlie or anything. I mean, I don't think there's any like complete superstars in this race. Creative Flair is interesting to me. I'm using her. I don't think she's impossible, guys. Nick, did you want to comment anything on Creative Flair or move on?
Yeah, no, you said it. You said the most important thing, which is that she's really been at her best when she's been forwardly placed. And that was why the ride in the Saratoga Oaks last year was so mystifying, because Conlima wired the field and she never really made an effort to go forward. And then Jamie Spencer kind of did the same thing in this brutally slow-paced Jockey Club Oaks at Belmont. So, I respect the heck out of Charlie Appleby. I think he's extremely talented, one of the best horsemen in the world. His horses have looked a little less good, for lack of a better way to put it, in 2022. But that's also because he wasn't always going to win 70% of the races that he ran in America. But yeah, she's interesting. And I'll tell you what might be interesting with her is if she resurfaces down the line in a mile and an 8th race, mile and a 16th race, even, that doesn't have as much confirmed speed, that's when she might be really dangerous.
Okay. Yeah. I just think she's interesting. And I have mad respect for David Aragono. I think he's the best Moorland maker in the country. I think we all pretty much agree on that. I don't know if she's going to be 8-1. I think she's going to be more like 5-1, but I still think she would be, in my opinion, at least, an overlay in this race if she's even 5-1 for me.
But Howard, one more thing, knowing the proclivities of the European jockeys, wouldn't Creative Flair have a better chance with Manny Franco on her to be aggressive and, to Nick's point, to be forwardly placed? We know what Jamie Spencer's going to do. He's going to do what he did the last time.
Nick, you're shaking. You agree with that, Nick? More aggressive rider.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, he's going to drag her back. He's going to try and let her make one run, and he's going to start with his, wing flapping thing like he does when he gets into
like the Karate Kid there, Mr. Miyagi.
It's so brutal to watch. I mean, last year's win on Yabir in the Jockey Club Derby, I guess it was called. Oh gosh, it's so awful to watch when they turn for home. It's almost like he's going to fall out of the saddle. And the fact that people are still bringing him over here to ride big races is unbelievable. The guy has a career of just totally baffling rides in America. Now, don't get me wrong. He's won a ton of races internationally, right? I mean, he's one of the top 10 riders in the world, but he has just done some totally inexplicable things in America. And to Paul's point, Manny Franco is one that would stick out. There's probably another 10 guys in the room I would put on this mare in Philly and give her a better opportunity to win.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think Nick's thoughts stand exactly as they are. Let's go
Howard.
on.
Hey, Howard, I know we're moving on. There was one thing I forgot. If somebody wants to be against Bleecker Street, who's a pretty big favorite, there was a stat that I found that surprised the crap out of me. Chad Brown with IRAD in graded stakes races on the turf at Saratoga, 3 for 29. That completely shocked the hell out of me. I always assume that they win a lot of races together, and maybe they do across the country, but apparently not. And only 14 in the money, which is really low for Chad as well. So that shocked the hell out of me. It actually made me think twice for a second. I mean, I love Bleecker Street normally, but for the listeners and viewers, if you want to knock against Bleecker Street, that could be one.
Nick, there you go. You can use it for your blog. That's an alarming stat. Wow, that's amazing.
That's a great stat.
All right, let's go to race 9. Race 9 is an optional 80 claimer and now allowance, mile and eighth on the turf. I thought this was a very difficult race. It's a big field. It's typical Saratoga. You do have a morning line favorite that if this colt runs back to his last race, it might be tough here. The number 9, Fort Ticonderoga for Shug and Jose Ortiz. Let's mix it up a little bit. Pete, let's go with you first. Pete, you've got the number 4 in this race, a very interesting horse. That's going to be a price for Pletcher and Carmouche.
Yeah, this one, I mean, I agree with you though on the 9. It seems like if the 9 runs to the top of its game, or maybe doesn't even have to hit the top of its game, it's maybe potentially could lay over this field. But this one I liked, I like the progression. It breaks the maiden, gets a 76, comes back at a 77. Not a big jump, but when you watch that race, it was just really oddly way too far back and then closed like a freight train, but there was no reason to be, that horse isn't built to be in 9th, I don't think. I mean, it hasn't run that many races, but I like the way it closed.
The one is Credit Event and the Klarovich, who's also in this race.
Yep.
And your horse is actually way back here, I think.
Way
correct?
back there, yeah, which made no sense because I'm trying to remember I can't remember if it broke terrible, either broke badly or maybe just got taken back.
Shuffled back a little bit.
It might have been a shuffle, if I remember.
And here he is.
Yeah, you see it sort of
split.
Yeah, weaving through, and actually, I like the agility there, and I like the weaving through horses. I mean, not every, and it's his third start, his third start, and it's weaving through, and I mean, was just coming into, and the pace was relatively slow. So even the fact that it was closing that much into it, so I just thought that there was something there, and then the horse 2 back that it beat, Balthus, came back and has won twice since then. So it's, it actually beat a decent horse coming back. I mean, you see there, broke its maiden, goes up into allowance with a 92 and wins. And I mean, in this field, if a horse can run a 92 or get close to that, it's probably got a good chance to win. And then I see it at 10-1 once I saw the morning line pop. Plus it's Pletcher, Carmouche you would expect to get that horse a little bit more forwardly placed. So I'm hoping does this time so it doesn't leave as much to do. And then maybe has a shot to upset the 9. Because there is a little bit of speed in here too. So if this one does sit off a bit, I think there should be something to run into.
Paul, you and I both have the 9 on top. There's probably not too much to say about this horse. I guess he's sort of the moto horse here, but I liked what he did last time, and the upside here is tremendous.
Yeah, I think Shug might have a decent meet coming his way. I didn't have the morning lines like most of us. We handicapped. Although you knew this horse was going to be back coming off in 87, but I just think there's a couple of different ways this horse can go. He looks tactical. The last 2 races, he was not too far back. As Pete said, there is some speed. He can sit off of it, get first run. He doesn't have to win, and I'm not lining up to bet him flat at under 2-1, but certainly a straight A for me in the multis.
Yeah, I just want to show the replay for people who didn't watch. I mean, he did get a good setup. Look how fast they went. The turf was very firm at that time. He just angles out here, gets a perfect trip. And what I like about this horse a lot, Paul, I don't know if you guys feel the same. He's got a very long stride. Look how this horse reaches out. I really like what I see here on the front end here. So of his stride. So I don't think distance, he doesn't exactly blow by these horses. He seems to be a bit one pace, but all that leads to me that the fact the horse might even be better going a mile and 8 than he was even in this race. So I like this horse a lot. You're going another direction, Nick, which I like a lot because I like creativity, and I try to do the same. I just didn't do it in this race. You're going with the 5 Summer Anthem, who actually I bet last time, and I had no idea why the horse was on the lead because I sort of liked his Keeneland main breaker when he set off a fast pace and ran well. What was your thought here with Summer Anthem?
Yeah, I thought he'd get a forwardly placed trip. I don't know if he'll necessarily be on the lead. I think, as Pete said, we're going to see Kendrick Carmouche get a little more aggressive with analogy. Forever Super on the rail has some speed as well. That might really put Summer Anthem in a good spot in the pocket just off the pace. And I thought his win 2 back was very solid given the way that race unfolded. Yeah, I don't want to hold the Audubon against him given the way that race went too. That was an exceptionally fast pace, and he tired late. I also am going to be very careful handling Churchill form on turf because there was a long stretch as well where it looked like it was a disadvantage being inside. This horse was inside as well.
Oh, it
So
didn't look like it. It was a black hole. The inside. It was horrendous.
yeah, it looked like
inside.
the old fairgrounds turf course in the winter where you want it to be
Yes.
5 pats off the rail. So
We
so I
talked
think
about
this
that.
horse. I think this horse kind of got the worst of it. He's going to be a good price. I want Maker early in the meet. I think Fort Ticonderoga, who by the way has one of the most unbelievable turf pedigrees on the dam side you'll ever find. And this is a Joe Allen family, includes Doswell and Secretary of War. His second dam is a horse named Castroma, which if you followed racing long enough, remember she won the Beverly D about 30 years ago. I was a little kid watching her run, and she had a rivalry with a horse named Flawlessly in Southern California they were really, really good. So, he took advantage of a fast pace, but that's not to say this horse doesn't have enormous upside and can't be effective down the line as well with more distance and more experience. And as Paul said, Shug had a little bit of a quiet Belmont. I think that'll end and he'll run a little bit better. So I don't know if the 87 buyer is exactly why you're supposed to like this horse, but obviously if he validates it, then he's going to be getting his picture taken.
I think this is a future stake horse. I think this is a really nice horse, and I don't think I singled him in our pick 5. I'm pretty sure I don't recall off the top of my head. It's been a long day, but anyway, I think this horse is serious, and I'm fascinated to see how this horse does on Saturday. All right, guys, let's go.
Howard, one more thing on
Yep.
that. You showed the replay. The horse he went by was a 3-5 Chad Brown horse that he
Growth
went
Capital.
by like he was like not even there. So that also makes that race somewhat impressive. That I mean, maybe Growth Capital is allergic to winning. Looking
He's
at
got a
those
little
PP.
seconditis there, Paul. Look at
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but I mean,
I was
he
going to
went
say
by.
Growth
Pete,
Capital's been a
he
little
wasn't
disappointing,
there.
but he's nice. But he's well meant. He's been well meant. So yeah,
Oof.
absolutely. All right, let's go on to the penultimate leg of the pick 5 here as I go ahead and do some switching around. This is going to be the Sanford. We'll just go right to. Actually, no. Let's bring up the Equibase so people at home can see the field here as I go switch them. There's our picks on the bottom of the screen. Pete will have you go first in this race. This is the Grade 3 Sanford. It's for the 2-year-old boys. They're going 6 furlongs. It's the sort of the rendition of the Schuylerville, except for the boys, of course, that just ran today. This is a very big field, as you can see as I scroll down. It's a field of 12. Morning favorite is the number 4 Forte, who broke his maiden very impressively at Belmont for Todd and Irad. And I believe that's where you're going, right, Pete?
Yeah, it's funny because I thought this race was one of the tougher races I've handicapped in a while, and it was maybe one of the better editions of the Sanford. I don't have that great of a memory, but it's one of the better ones I can remember. And I'm going through all these horses, and I'm like, I'm really going to land on the favorite on the top spot. But to me, this is a spread race, so sort of my pick of the 4 on top is just more ceremonial than anything else. I had about 6 horses that I liked actually, but this one, I think you mentioned it. I mean, it came back. Broke its maiden, really nice buyer. It's got Irad, it's Pletcher. It's bred really well. There's some really good Pletcher Irad stats for 2-year-olds and some stuff that I uncovered. So just looking at it overall, it just felt like a horse that I would want to have on the ticket. And it definitely just seems like one that definitely has a pretty good shot to win. So from that perspective, and it was 20 cents in its maiden race. And, if you're taking that much money, you're well thought of. Either that or they're running against a bunch of dogs, and not much came out of it. I think there was a couple in the money horses after that, but they were like low buyers. But, still.
As I show the replay, here's the Forte. Is there one particular stat you want to throw out for the viewers and listeners, maybe like how he is, after a maiden win in a stake race or some kind, whatever stat you got?
Yeah, I had the one. So there was a combo with Ortiz and Pletcher in 2-year-olds in dirt sprints. He was 16 out of 46, so 35%, and 33 out of 46 in the money, so 72%. And then a smaller one with a real small sample size, but it was Irad with Pletcher in 2-year-olds who were maiden winners last out. 5 wins, 8 in the money out of 9 races. So there was one other stat, Rapoli and Pletcher with a 35%. So it's just like a bunch of stats where, if this horse is good, which it seems like it is, it's got the right people around it to get that out of him as well.
The only comment I'll make about Forte, I'll let everyone else talk. He looks to me like distance is going to be his friend. Like it didn't even it looked like he's just getting warmed up to me. So I think the 6 furlongs is going to, I'm a big visual guy, as you guys know. I think the 6 furlongs is going to hit this horse right between the eyes. I'm not sure I can say that for some of the others. Paul, you're going obviously with the, well, not obviously, you're going with the 4 also. Paul, let's talk about the 5. You got the 5 in second, so do I. Curly Jack. For me, this is just a lot of respect for Tom Amos, but I mean, he did nothing wrong, and Tom Amos is not going to bring a horse here that he doesn't think can compete.
Yeah, and Tom was talking about him a little bit on Saratoga Live today.
Okay.
He's fairly confident. I mean, all trainers are confident, but I think, well, as Nick will attest, all trainers tend to maybe overstate their horses' chances. Tom is, I think, a pretty straight shooter, and he seems fairly confident. And I laughed looking at it because I'm such a Curlin fan, and now I'm seeing another son of Curlin producing a stakes horse, which really makes me happy. But yeah, I think that's legit. It's not easy to win from the rail first time out. I took some money. Went to the lead. Didn't kill himself to get to the lead, but won easily. So I think he's right in the mix. But I'm anxious to hear Nick talk when he talks, because I'm actually previewing this race for the Saratoga Special, and we'll be focusing on the 3. I am talking to Eddie Owens Jr. at 8 a.m. tomorrow. So I'm very happy to see Nick pick him.
Wow, wow, that just works perfectly. I'm just going to shut up and let you guys talk. Nick, what do you like about Great Navigator, 12-1 morning line, coming off a big win for lower connections?
No, I'll tell you, worlds collide now with my pick and Paul's morning activity tomorrow. But I actually was watching Monmouth this particular day. I thought this horse ran really, really well. And of the horses that are obviously the majority of these horses are second-time starters who won on debut. I think there's an argument to be made he may have beaten the best field of anybody, because the runbacks have all been positive. There's been 3 next out Beyer speed figure improvements. This is a horse who has 4 6-figure earners in the second family. So the pedigree, he's a homebred, but the pedigree is not awful. It's a Jersey bred family, of course. So he really rates to get better with a little bit of distance. I thought this was a pretty polished and professional effort. Roll Again Dancer, who was third, came right back and won. There were a couple of other horses that came back with improved efforts. So I wanted a horse that could sit a little bit off the pace. And I think we saw in the Schuylerville today, that's a huge credit. That's a huge plus when you have a horse that's effectively rated before, just as today's winner did. And I didn't want to pick Forte. I've got a stat for you on Todd Pletcher, 2-year-old second-time starters in graded stakes at Saratoga on the dirt. He's 1 for 15 with a 28-cent ROI. Wow. So the one winner being Witt last year in this race. And I remember talking about him being 0 for 13, I think, prior to that, coming into it. So, I think this horse beat a bunch of slobs last time. Now look, he made him look bad, but that was a horrendous field. So he's just going to be a bad bet, in my opinion. So, not to dump on anybody that's using Forte whatsoever. He's a horse that you have to respect because of the talent that he has. I agree with you that distance looks like it'll be his friend. Queen Caroline was an effective turf router in her day. I just thought there could be other interesting horses in here. That's why I found Great Navigator. Valenzen Day on the outside is a horse who I think is interesting as well. Yeah. 2 of a kind who won the Tremont, had broken his maiden at Churchill very impressively and came back and ran very well. Valenzen Day got dragged out of the race by Joel. He got into a little bit of trouble on the turn. Not significant, but enough to at least break his stride a little bit and keep him. It actually happens right
before that. He lost action. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it happens a couple of times. A couple of times he drags back. Yeah, he drags back right here. And then again on the turn, he gets steadied. And, it's just that these are lightly raced horses, right, that have had very, very little experience. And you put 2 of a kind in the mix, and it's going to be tough for anybody to do it. So he steadies right there. And then he kind of steadies again, looking for a place.
He was like trying to wait for a hole that wasn't there. It was a weird. I bet him this day, Nick. So that was a sneaky bad trip. I agree with you.
Yeah, and he looks like another furlong or so would probably work out really well for him. So he was another one that I thought was interesting. Of the Churchill horses, not to just get on a tangent here, but of the Churchill horses, I like Mo Strike the best. And you want to talk about good numbers. Brad Cox was second-time starters that broke their maiden on debut as 2-year-olds. He's 31% with nearly a $3 ROI. That is a very un-Brad Cox-like stat. This horse, I think, beat a pretty solid field. And we'll see how good he is getting more distance, because I'll tell you, with the pedigree, he should have gone for a heck of a lot more than 325, but he looked awfully professional in his debut.
I don't want to talk too much about what Phil said, but was there a claim of foul that I missed, guys? Now I'm going to readily, I'm going to readily admit, don't hate me for this, guys, because sometimes life gets in the way. I did have a golf lesson in the middle of pick 5. Listen, I didn't want to switch it. I made it a week ago. I know, Paul, throw shame at me. That's okay. So I did miss out on a few things. What claim of foul is Phil talking about? Do you guys have any opinion on this?
Wasn't it Kanisi, Nick?
It was Kanisi. Yeah, it was. I watched the replay a couple times, and if Phil has any insight into what Julian Leperoux was referring to, by all means, let us know. I didn't see anything. And in fact, I looked through Twitter, dangerous as that is, to try and find some expertise. And I saw a couple of people say that maybe they thought that Javier's whip got close to Lady Pookie's face, but it didn't look like that either. So
was that in deep stretch? Because I just watched the replay on my phone. I'm like, and you guys are talking right now. Inquiry on Kanisi. I'm like, she wired the field. What could there possibly be?
Yeah, we don't know where it was. That's the problem.
That's exactly. We don't know whether it was mid-stretch.
Okay.
Deep
no,
stretch,
even on the sorry, Nick, even on the broadcast, they had no idea. They were watching the replay, and I guess they never got any information. So yeah, and then all of a sudden it was just official, and it was done with, and nobody talked about it again. So
hey, Howard, when you go to Saratoga, maybe you could go to the National Museum of Dance some afternoon.
I thought you were going to say the National Hall of Fame Museum, because I am going there, by the way, and I'm going on the tour with Tom Durkin, so I'm really excited about that, because Tom does a great Mr. Durkin. I'm talking as if I know him. Tom Durkin does a great tour at the National. Have you guys been to that, by the way? The one that he gives? Nick, have you been to that?
I've not been on the tour that he gives. I've been to the Hall of Fame a couple times. It's great.
Okay, I hear the one he gives is really cool. So I'm
Nick,
very entertaining guy.
Nick, do you have any idea who might have won the Hopeful in 1992?
92 would have been DeHare, right? No. 93 was DeHare.
No, it was a horse called Great Navigator.
Great Navigator.
Enough.
That's funny. Yeah. Wow.
Trained by John Mazza, who is was the longtime trainer for Hollycrest Farm, who is the breeder and owner of this Great Navigator.
So they reuse the name. I guess it's okay when you use it. You reuse it.
You can see what I spent my time prepping for the show doing.
Hey, you're ready to roll. That's good info.
By the way, those of you who don't know Nick very well, he is like Mr. Trivia. He can pull like crap out of his head, unbelievable. And just because you mentioned DeHare, Nick, as a young man, just dead into horse racing as a fan, DeHare was like one of my favorites. He won all three of those races as a 2-year-old, and he did it like Witt style, coming from behind. Correct? Am I right about that?
Yeah, he had some speed, but he was more of an off the pace type. And unfortunately, Breeders' Cup that year was in California, and so the ship was a bit much. And speaking of Tom Durkin, of course, to bring our conversation full circle, great line by him. There's a new kid in town, Bracco, when he won the juvenile that year.
Beautiful, absolutely. And Bracco was a prize, if I recall that day too. All right, Nick, we're gonna talk about the last race. And Nick, because I know you got family, you got dinner. After this race, we'll let you go, and then the three of us. We'll talk about our Pick 5 tickets. So we'll make this the last few minutes for you, Nick, and we greatly appreciate you being on the show. Nick, you're going to go first here. The closeout leg on Saturday is a mile 16th on the turf. It's for older fillies and mares, non-winners of 2, with a claim price of $35,000. It's a big field. It's a difficult field. The morning line favorite is the number 4, Diva Ready, for Jonathan Thomas and Flavian Pratt, who I have to say I have no idea. Well, I know why the horse is 2-1, but I'm trying to beat this horse completely. As are you, Nick. You're going with the 6, Bella Conchita, for the previously aforementioned Cherie DeVoe, and in this case, Manny Franco.
Yeah, and I think the morning line on Diva Ready likely has to do, of course, with the class drop, but she probably is the main speed in here. I don't know how much that matters. when push came to shove, there are a lot of horses in this race coming out of the 5th on June 19th. And that was a period of time. And I would encourage anybody, friend of the show, of course, Andy Serling puts the track trends on the NYRA website. Review the track trends regularly if you're not an avid NYRA follower, but you are playing Saratoga. One of the things that Andy pointed out, and there have been enough runbacks to really make it a worthwhile type of endeavor, the week of June 19th, so that 4-day stretch, the week after the Belmont, and then a little bit the week after that, the inside paths on the turf course were not where you want it to be. And so if you watch this race, one thing you're going to see is that all of the action is on the outside. From the half-mile pole home, if you stop it right here, the eventual 1, 2, 3, 4 finishers are all 3 or 4 paths off the rail. Princess Pinky is in the lime green silks right now in 4th on the outside. Kemba is at the back of the pack. Synonymous is right there where you just pointed. She's outside. Kemba is outside of that runner. But the horse that you hovered over for a second to 2 is Clarabelle. And so Clarabelle ends up stuck on the rail the whole way. That's why I picked Clarabelle in the money. She was 4-1 in this race. She's going to be about 15 or 20-1 in here. But again, I mean, in terms of race flow and where these horses are, they are just wider. Synonymous, who ends up 5th beaten 2, is widest. Kemba is now angling out with the shadow roll. So yeah, again, I mean, you're just seeing these horses. Now, with all of that said, there's a chance that this race stunk too. So, I mean, I know that you either want to take Clarabelle or you want to take nobody. And Clarabelle being a price as part of the rationale as well. So with all that said, Bella Conchita's dropping in for a tag for the first time. Cherie DeVoe has a small sample in this category, but first time for a tag on the turf. She's 3 for 6. She's got a really nice ROI with it. This is a filly who she's obviously just looking for a place. This is a much weaker field than what she faced last time. I think she'll be effective at 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. So I would rather take her at 5-1 than pretty much anybody in here. But I can tell you that I'll be looking to close out all of my multi-race plays with the 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, Nick, I'm not a big fan of the bunched up finish there. There's like 4 or 5 horses. We saw another replay that, and this is not something that I'm being too creative about. A lot of excellent handicappers have brought this up, but the bunched up finish, just not a big fan of that. And I think the most interesting thing about this race, Nick, and you and I agree with each other. Pete and Paul do not. We talked about to Chad or not to Chad. Pete and Paul have the 9. I totally understand why, and I'm gonna let them explain. But Nick, I don't like. Why does this horse have to win? I mean, she was on the sin. I mean, Chad doesn't like to run his horses on that Gulfstream turf anyway. But I mean, she broke her mane for 50. Then she's doing a state bred race. Now she's in for 35, and it's Chad and Irad. She's going to be betting. And I'm like, why? Like, why? Like, what makes her special? And obviously, you would agree with me, Nick. We don't have this horse even in the top 3.
Yeah, I mean, if you cross out Chad Brown and you put Bruce Brown, this horse is probably 15-1. So, that's the challenge, though, right? Is that, and then if she wins, you can't blame anybody. Because she's a logical horse from a good barn. He probably knows she's likely 80-90% to be claimed out of here. She still has upside. Somebody could take her right back down to South Florida and get some incentives for having her a Florida bred. And she obviously likes the synthetic, which we're going to see a lot of synthetic racing at Gulfstream between now and December. But yeah, she's done nothing on the racetrack that makes me particularly bowled over. But Chad has good, solid numbers. First time for a tag on the turf in Saratoga, 32%, just about a break-even ROI. So I'm not going to take a big stand against her. I picked her 4th, but again, I'm not in a big rush to use her.
Yeah, I've got her as a B. I don't know if there's going to be love for this horse, but if this is the exact type of Chad that I'm completely trying to beat in every way, shape, or form. And in saying that, Nick, we might get punched in the face in the last race, but we are using her just defensively. Paul, I'll let you talk first with this horse really quickly. Paul and Pete, tell us why we're completely wrong, why this horse should be a single.
Oh, I don't think you're wrong at all. I think that the race is it was a default pick by me, and 4-1 might be optimistic with a Chad, but I think the race is horrible. I like I really do, and I like Nick talking about Clarabelle's bad trip last time,
Yeah.
because I think a 15-1 shot is what you want, and we can talk more when we talk about the tickets, Howard. But I think this race is a classic example of why you have to pay attention to ticket structure, and why you can't bet all 4 Chad Browns in the Diana, because you better be able to be spread in this race, okay? Because you may have a Chad Brown win this race and pay 980. You also might have a $42 horse win this race that you'd like to have covered. So I think you just need to be very deep. And it wasn't with me that it was Chad. It was I just kind of defaulted because I just think it's really not a strong race at all.
Okay, Pete, I'm gonna let you talk about the 3, and then I'm gonna let Nick make any pick 5 comments, ticket construction comments, then we'll let Nick go, and then the 3 of us will show our tickets and we'll end the show. Pete, very quickly, I have the 3 on top. I think she's fascinating, especially in this kind of race. What is it that you liked about the 3, Pete? You have her in second.
I mean, just to keep it simple, I agree with Nick a little bit about that race. I didn't love that race because I didn't actually like Kemba, but I like this one. I liked it when it got put back on the turf, and made the trainer change. It actually just improved, and now it's got a 70 and a 64, and that 64 was a little of a weird race too. But it's got Saez back again. Saez ran it pretty well last time. Again, I'm with Paul. I thought this race top to bottom was just kind of horrible. So I was just looking for somewhere where I thought a horse had some ability to potentially improve. And there was a reason maybe for the improvement. In this one, it was back on the turf, new barn, better jockey. Again, I think that's enough maybe to beat this sort of, half and half field.
Yeah, I didn't love the field. We just watched the race, but she did close in a slow pace, making a wide move, which according to Nick and Andy was actually not a bad thing, but it was a slow pace that she had to close into. I've got the 4, who I think could wire the field in second. And Nick, I agree. I sort of like your 6, even though I'm not a big fan of 1 for 11, but she's run figs that fit. I sort of like the time off. I'm sure Cherie DeVoe pointed specifically, to this race once she saw the condition book come out. So I'm interested in the 6.
Hey Howard, real quick on the 6 too. The one thing because I had that horse in third, and I like the fact that if you look last year, those turf races, you could see the steady improvement. It went from like 67, 69, 71, 73, and was really improving. I mean, it wasn't winning, unfortunately, but it was hitting the board. And then they put it on the synth, and it was really good on the synth. It sort of stayed the course. And then I thought that last one, again, it was sort of a weird race, but I thought that one, maybe the mile and a half just got to it. And it was sitting in a nice position. And if you watched it, it just sort of faded at the end. And it was like, okay, now we're cutting back a little bit. We're back on the turf. I think this one is interesting. And again, potentially you get a price if those other 2 take a lot of money.
Yeah. Nick, listen, we really appreciate you being on the show. I want to let you get back to your dinner and your family. What else you got going on? Very quickly, because I didn't see a pick 5 ticket from you today. How would you tell the viewers and listeners to attack this pick 5 sequence from a ticket construction standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to get pretty bold in the first couple legs with reinvestment risk and Bleecker Street and really branch off from there. So liking horses at prices like I do, like Summer Anthem and Great Navigator and Bella Conchita and a little bit of Clarabelle in the last, you want to make it kind of, I mean, I'm going to start it as a single and then kind of branch off from there. But this might be one where you play your A ticket for $4 or $5, depending on how you like to structure things, and then use your backups judiciously. But I don't have I'm not taking a big stand against the 2 favorites that start the sequence. I think they're kind of the keys to it.
And Nick, I heard you're going to be at Saratoga only once this year. Was it for the Travers? Did I hear that on another show correctly?
Yes, that's the plan. Yep. One time, once is better than none. I've not been in 4 years. So looking forward to it.
Nice.
All right. Well,
Nick, you got to promise to let me buy you a beer Travers weekend, Nick.
100% done.
All right. Nick, thanks a lot for coming on again. I apologize for the tech issue at the beginning of the show. We love having you. We look forward to having you on again sometime. Enjoy the rest of your summer and enjoy the Travers when you're at Saratoga, my friend.
Thank you, gentlemen. The pleasure was all
Thanks,
mine.
Nick.
Good luck. Talk to you soon.
Take care, Nick.
Thanks, Nick. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks, Nick. All right. Don't leave, everyone. That was Nick Tammaro. Great job. As always, really appreciate his expertise. Let's talk about our pick 5s. Here we go. This is Paul's pick 5 on the bottom of the screen. I'm going to read it off for our people that are going to be listening to the show later on. Paul's got 5, singling the 5 reinvestment risk with 1, 3, 4, with 3, 6, 9, 10, with 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, with 5, 6, 9. It's a $90 ticket. Paul's single reinvestment risk, and if he loses, just like I did to start the pick 5, you just play that pick 4 and crush that one, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I did. That was today's strategy, Howard.
That's what I did today.
And I managed not to hit it too, but
sorry.
Yeah, and that's not, that ticket was kind of hastily put together. I would want to probably, I will be, as you know, for the millionth time, it's going to be more of an ABC ticket, but that'll be my lone A. And, I really would like to get, 3 A's and a B going into that last race. So to be at least alive to A's and B's because, but the Sanford is, I think Pete talked about it when we talked about the race. The Sanford's a tough race. There's no that's tough sledding to get by that race. I really think it is.
Paul, my first ticket I was putting together, I had 8 horses in the Sanford, and then to meet the limit, I had to start cutting. But I was like, I could logically see 2/3 or 3/4, whatever the field is, winning that race without even looking at it twice, without even a question of it.
This is one of the reasons why I love doing this show. Not only talk to you guys, but talk to our great guests that we have throughout the country. Is I was sort of going to be leaning pretty hard on the 4 in that race. My opinion has changed, and it takes quite a bit for me to change my opinion. Not because I'm a stubborn son of a bitch, but because I really try hard to go with my gut and just listen to people, and then don't let that influence me too much. I think Nick makes a great case for the number 3 a lot. I like what he said. You guys make some cases for some others. So, that'll probably be a spread race for me as well. Pete's ticket is Pete is not a reinvestment risk believer, which I like. And again, he plays ABCs also, but he is going 4 deep in the first leg. Pete is going 2, 4, 5, 6 with 3, with 4, 6, 9, with 2, 3, 4, 9, 12, with 3, 6, 9. It's a $90 ticket. Pete, I love your gumption and guts in the Diana because I think a lot of people are going to at least go 2 or 3 deep because it's a tough field, but you are singling in a race where most people are not. I like that.
Yeah, so my thought was, again, reinvestment risk looks like maybe lays over the field, but has a propensity not to win. Now, again, he probably shouldn't have won any of those races either for the most part. He wasn't the best horse in any of those races, but maybe he's just gotten used to losing and doesn't win this one. And I liked the other 3 horses. I think all of them it was Zoomer, Nova Rags, and Answer In. I actually had reasons why I like those horses. They all need to sort of take steps up. Actually, Answer In's best races aren't that far off of reinvestment risk. So I figure if you could beat that horse, because I think if you beat Bleecker Street, it's not going to be most likely with a bomb. Maybe you beat him with Rougier, which isn't going to go crazy. But if you beat reinvestment risk with a double-digit odds horse, I think that's when you get the payout really up there, potentially.
I want to bring this up before the very end of the show. Folks, we have a fantastic online store for the HHH Racing podcast. I know both these guys have bought stuff. We have hats, t-shirts, hoodies, quarter zips. To find out about the online store, go below. I'm not going to take the time to show everyone. Most people know by now. Go below the video player of this broadcast, or actually the last few podcasts. Go below the video player in the description. Click the Show More button, and under the number 1 promotion is a link to the online store. Again, underneath the video player in the description, click the Show More button, and then under number 1 promotion, there is a link to the online store. It is only open. Listen to this now. It's on the screen. The online store closes this Monday, July 18th at midnight. Again, the store closes this Monday night, July 18th at midnight. Check it out, folks. There's really good merchandise there. We try to make the price as low as possible. Actually, I had no choice of the price, but I tried to find a vendor that was reasonably priced because everything's very expensive these days. We really think there's excellent selection of goodies. If you want to help promote the show and so that we get more shows on, great guests, more content. We really need your help. So please check out the online store, but you need to do it soon. It is only open through this upcoming Monday. Let's get back to my pick five right now as I find it through the banners. Here's my pick five, and I'm going to say very selfishly but proudly, my picks were very good on Tuesday for this show. I did not have the 49,000 to one shot that won the first leg of the pick five, but I had Just Genda, the one that won today. I also had Kanisi on top, the one today. I had Gaza Fire, that exacted with Tarabi on the show Tuesday. So these guys also are fantastic. I'm not shortchanging them. How do we do that? There we go. These guys are also fantastic. Something like that, yeah. And you gotta. It's the opposite. You know, you're gonna see. You'll find out next week about that, Pete. We'll keep that a little secret until next Tuesday. But Pete's gonna find out why this hosting thing isn't quite as easy as it looks. Anyway, our picks, all four of our guests were great on Tuesday with their picks. Here's my pick five. I'm going 5-9 with 2-3-4 with 9 with 4-5-6-9-12. With 3-4-5-6-10. It's a $75 ticket. Here's my theory, guys. I don't know if the 9 Fort Ticonderoga is the most likely winner, but I don't know. A lot of people are going to single him, and I think he's got superstar potential. I love that horse in the third leg. That's my single. I'm throwing Baby Yoda in there in an ABC just in case he freaks again against Saratoga. I would not want to be out of the ticket if Baby Yoda wins. I'm also throwing the Charles Appleby horse with the two best Chads in the Diana. Charles Appleby is bringing this horse over for a reason. JB Spencer, okay, maybe he's got issues in the States. I don't know. But I'm not going to let that horse beat me out of the pick five. And then I'm going to be very spready in the last two. I agree with you guys. The Sanford and that last cluster F race is impossible. So if people are asking me, Howard, how would you construct your ticket? You can use any horses you want, but I highly recommend viewers and listeners out there, you go light early and spread late. Whatever horses you want to use is up to you. But I think you have to save money for the last two legs, and you have to spread. That is my opinion. Guys, as we wrap up the show, we had tremendous viewership again. By the way, tomorrow, I'm not going to do a show. I already had a few people ask me, Howard, do like an emergency pod? I got some things I have to do in the morning tomorrow, so I apologize. But there is a $120,000 pick six carryover tomorrow at Saratoga. Guys, it's amazing. The 6 was one of the few horses not covered, who the favorite in the last race was not covered in the pick six. Go figure. So there is a nice pick six tomorrow with, I think, 2 stakes, Paul, the Forbidden Apple, and I think there's another stake, if I recall. But anyway, as Paul looks that up.
Yeah, the Coronation, the Coronation Cup is in the sequence.
And that is, I'm just going totally off of memory because I got a crazy memory. Is that 5.5 on the turf for like 3-year-olds or something?
5.5 on the turf for 3-year-old fillies. Howard, very good.
And I cannot remember someone I met yesterday. Golf courses and horse races. I've got that in my brain. Someone I met yesterday.
Nick is very against the favorite, Twilight Gleaming.
Oh wait, that's Wesley. Wait, Wesley.
That was the Breeders' Cup winner, right? Wasn't that the Breeders' Cup winner?
If I heard him correctly, I was listening to Steve Bick today while I was at work, trying to get a few things accomplished. Okay. And I believe you can go back and listen to the Steve Bick archive, but I'm pretty sure he said he was looking forward to betting against Twilight Gleaming.
Wow. I'm gonna have to rewind. By the way, Steve Bick show is great. Nick is on there often. You can actually watch the replay of that. I'm going to be doing that later tonight. I'm curious there. Anyway, it's a great card tomorrow. Let's see, Jim had Kanisi multiple times for Jim Pilar's in the pick 4. Nice job, Jim, on that hit. Anyway, we're not going to do a show for the pick 6 tomorrow, but there is a pick 6 carryover on that. Pete and Paul. Actually, you know what? We'll let Paul have the last word on Tuesday. Pete, last word about any particular horse you like on Saturday, anything you saw today that you think is worthwhile discussing for people moving forward with Saratoga?
I didn't see anything necessarily today that I thought was super interesting. I just thought it was sort of, I think you talked about it was sort of a varied day. You got basically all the flavors of Saratoga in one day, which was fun. I mean, Saturday, I mean, it kicks off what we love about Saratoga is the best horses and the best races come about during this meet. Now you're seeing the Diana again. Yeah, there's a ton of Chads, but there's some good horses in it. And then you see the Sanford, which is just a crazy good race. I mean, it's so deep. And those are horses that we could be talking about for the next, what month are we in now? For the next 5 months until the Breeders' Cup. And then until, 5 months after that, until the Derby. And this is sort of the kickoff of that. And that's always exciting.
It's fantastic. It's always a great. Speaking of great meets, I'll end the show with this. On the bottom of the screen, you can see it. Next week, listen carefully now. Next week, we're not going Tuesday, Thursday. We've got a bunch of different scheduling things going on with our lives next week. We're going next Tuesday. I'm working on a guest right now for Del Mar. We're going to be Del Mar opens a week from tomorrow on a Friday, July 22nd. So our Tuesday show will be all about Del Mar and their opening day. Stakes and pick 5. The Ocean Side will be one of them. That's one of their traditional stake races for 3-year-olds on the turf. I think it's a mile race, if I recall. And then next Wednesday, I am not going to be here, but there still will be a show. Who's going to be hosting it? Who's going to be here? We're just going to let that float in the air, let people decide. But Wednesday is going to be a can't miss show because I won't be here. So I'm sure the viewership is going to be off the charts, but there will be a show next Wednesday, so stay tuned for that as well. We'll have a different person who is actually hosting the show. Will not be me, and we'll be talking about the Monmouth card because it is the Haskell a week from Saturday. So again, next Tuesday will be Del Mar opening day, and next Wednesday, July 20th, I will be like Jamie Spencer. I'll be on a plane flying to Saratoga, and we'll be having a podcast talking about the Monmouth great day of stakes for the Haskell. Yes, Pete is taking over the show. The show will never be the same. Pete Visco, right over there, right there. He will be the host. Pete is going to be making his hosting debut. He's got all the technical stuff ready to go. You know, why spoil it? The great Paul Halver will be his co-host and not a guest. He'll
Paul, we might go from 1,300 subscribers till about 10 the week after it's me and you. So
I think we might go to 2,000.
I know. I was going to say we might be like once it jumps up, we'll just have to branch off into our own little podcast after
the next
thing.
Hey Pete, the next item in the store is the T-shirt that says Howard Who.
I love it. I love it.
I'll work on that one, Paul. I think that's a perfect way to end right there. So for my used-to-be co-host, Pete Visco and Paul Halloran, this has been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 158 again. Thank you for dealing with some of the tech difficulties at the beginning of the show, and now I'm blurry. Let's just get out of here. Good luck at Saratoga on Saturday, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.